Hello, I'll be speaking about the Mixed Methods Integration Trilogy and education research. I'm Michael D. Fetters from the University of Michigan, and it's a great pleasure to be at the 8th International Conference on Education and the 17th National Conference on Innovative Education, with the theme of Future and Challenge in Educational Research on Teaching and Learning Toward Professional Development. It's Saturday, June 5th for this presentation, which is a Saturday, and I've just thus chosen purple as our theme color for today, as I understand that it's a lucky color in Thai on Saturdays. And I'll also be speaking a little bit more about this color later relative to integration. I have no disclosures to make about financial relationships. I would like to share a note of appreciation to Dean Mariam Nilipun and the Faculty of Education of Sopakorn University in Thailand for hosting the conference. And I think this is a very exciting time to be in mixed methods and working on this topic. We know that mixed method research has growing popularity around the world. Researchers in multiple disciplines around the world are using mixed methods research. And the COVID-19 pandemic has actually highlighted the need for novel mixed methods innovations in the context of catastrophic social change. I wanted to just reflect briefly about my own position in the field. I have previous experience from 14 funded mixed methods projects in complex settings, including many that were conducted in multicultural and multilingual environments. I was a consultant on the 2013 National Institutes of Health Mixed Methods Guidelines Committee that was sponsored by the Office of Social and Behavioral Research, and on the 2019 PCORI Qualitative and Mixed Methods Standards. I've conducted multiple mixed methods and qualitative workshops internationally in 11 countries. So it is very exciting to be joining you here in Thailand. I was actually in Thailand physically in 2016 thanks to opportunity to present a mixed methods research workshop at the Language Institute of Thammasat University. My host was Professor Kittitut Suntornbopast, who is the Vice Director for Planning, International Relations, and Quality Assurance at the Language Institute of Thammasat University, and Dr. Pornsiri Sigapricha, Director of Language Institute. And my apologies if I didn't get the name pronunciations done well. I'm the co-editor-in-chief at the Journal Mixed Methods Research since 2015, and I co-founded with John Creswell the Mixed Methods Research Program of the University of Michigan in 2015, and have continued to serve as co-director or director since its establishment. The University of Michigan Mixed Methods Program faculty have given over 20 mixed methods and qualitative research workshops to over 550 participants. Our participants have been from Michigan, across the United States, Puerto Rico, and over 20 countries around the globe. And actually, the COVID-19 pandemic transitioned the Mixed Methods program to an online format, and the online format has actually expanded access to mixed methods training globally, especially in the Global South. There are fields commonly using mixed methods research, and at the Journal Mixed Methods Research, the greatest number of submissions have come from the fields of education, health sciences, sociology, and psychology. There have been 124 empirical articles published based on a review that I did with my co-editor, Jose Molina Azorn. Of these, 81.5% were from the fields of education, health sciences, sociology, and psychology. So you can see that education was one of the top contributors in the first 10 years of publication at the Journal Mixed Methods Research. Additionally, contributions came from geography, management, communication, sports sciences, anthropology, criminology, agriculture, sustainability, and some others as well. In our editorial, we found that 36 different countries had published in the Journal of Mixed Methods Research in the first 10 years since its establishment. But we also found that authorship was heavily weighted to authors from the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and Canada. 27 articles have been written by authors from more than 2 countries, and it was indicative of the global scope. So At JMMR, we do encourage contributions from international authors, especially from those outside of North America and other European-based countries and Australia. It is actually very exciting to see the number of books that have been published by education authors in the field of mixed methods research. This is just a handful of some of the more influential books and more famous ones. I'd like to point out Educational Research is in its 7th edition. This is the book by Johnson and Leigh Christensen, indicated here. Educational Research, Planning, Conducting, and Evaluating Quantitative and Qualitative Research by John W. Cresswell is in the 6th edition, and that's been published with Timothy Gutterman. And then Donna Merton's book, Research and Evaluation in Education and Psychology, Integrating Diversity with Quantitative, Qualitative, and Mixed Methods is in its 5th edition. And there are a number of other books published by education authors as noted here. My objectives today are to understand fundamental concepts of mixed methods research and integration, to distinguish conceptually among the 3 components of the mixed methods integration trilogy, and for you to reflect on those 3 dimensions for potential application for interpreting the literature as well as for applying to your own project. So we'll start with the objective of to understand fundamental concepts of mixed methods research and integration. So in mixed methods research, mixed methods researchers combine and mix both qualitative and quantitative strands of inquiry in their work. They harness the power of qualitative and quantitative inquiry to achieve a more robust understanding than would be possible with either method alone. Mixed methods research has been deemed essential for addressing the most complex and wicked problems faced in the world. There has been a challenge, though, in using integration. Alan Bryman brought attention to this, to the lack of integration in mixed methods studies. Tony Onwuebueze argued for a much greater need for integrating in mixed methods studies. And in 2015, myself and Don Freshwater, as an editorial, published the Mixed Methods Research Integration Challenge, which we call the 1 + 1 = 3 Integration Challenge. And basically what we're trying to achieve is that we want the whole 3 to be greater than the sum of the individual qualitative and quantitative parts. And we ask people, how can the application of mixed methods within a discipline expand and contribute to new ways of thinking about the integration of qualitative and quantitative research in mixed methods projects? But current challenges to integration remain. Despite these debates and search for answers since the late 1980s, there have been many advancements made. But mixed methods research and thinkers while having pioneered many conceptualizations and approaches for integration, we still see that many researchers lack the knowledge and skills necessary for integration. I think part of that problem has been a conceptual problem, and I'd like to bring to your attention Jennifer Green's conceptualization of mixed methods research that she wrote in 2015. For those of you who don't know her, Jennifer Green is a true pioneer in the field of mixed methods research, publishing one of her papers about mixed methods research as a review. In her conceptualization of mixed methods research, she talks about work at the paradigm level. And in one of her evaluation projects, the research team identified with both paradigms of post-positivism and constructivism. At the methodological level, they used a quasi-experimental design which was consistent with the post-positivism, and they also used many case studies as consistent with the constructivism paradigm. And then at the methods level, they used structured quantitative analysis of foods eaten and discarded by school children in a study, and they used unstructured qualitative data collection that was collected from interviews. So this is a visual representation of Green's mixed methods research evaluation project called Eat Right and Be Fit. And she discussed the levels of paradigm, methodological, and methods. And for the quantitative research, here shown in red, they use post-positivism. For the qualitative research, indicated in blue, they use constructivism. Consistent with the post-positivism and the methodological level, they used a quasi-experimental framework, and at the methods level, they used a structured quantitative analysis. Contrast with that, with the paradigm of constructivism, they used a mini case study framework, and they also utilized group interviews, which were unstructured. And so Green's point was that the paradigm, the methodological level, and the methods level were consistent across all of these. And in the qualitative work, again, the paradigm, the methodological, and the methods were all consistent. And they combined all of this research together. So my next objective is to distinguish conceptually among the three components of what we call the Mixed Methods Integration Trilogy. When I say we, I'm referring to myself and my co-editor, Jose Molina Azorin, when we wrote the Mixed Methods Integration Trilogy and its dimensions. And in this trilogy, we talk about the philosophical dimension, the methodological dimension, the methods dimension, and how integration is central to that. So let's talk a little bit about paradigms. Paradigm is just a worldview held by a group of people, often scholars, and it includes a distinctive set of assumptions and beliefs. The first is, what does the researcher consider to be reality? And so the fancy name for that is ontology. Next, what the researcher considers as knowledge. This is called epistemology. And then what is it that the research values? This is called axiology. And then what approach a researcher uses to collect data, the methodology. And then how a researcher communicates to others. This is the rhetoric. So these are different dimensions within a paradigm. It's basically the worldview telling us how researchers think. Now, Tashikori and Johnson and Tedley define methodology as research style and logic of inquiry which has a history of use along with its methodological requirements. And so we note from this that methodology is a feature of the philosophical aspects. And then on the methods dimension, this is the specific strategies, techniques, and procedures for implementing a research design, including the sampling, data collection, data analysis, and interpretation of the findings. So methods are the procedures that are applied within the methodology. Surprisingly, there have been relatively few definitions of integration placed into the literature. This is one by myself and Jose Molina Azorin, where we state that integration is the linking of qualitative and quantitative approaches and dimensions together to create a new, whole, or more holistic understanding than achieved by either alone. Janice Morris refers to integration as the point of interface between the qualitative and the quantitative data. So moving forward, we then define the integration trilogy as an overarching concept that includes all the dimensions where philosophers, ethicists, methodologists, applied researchers, and other academicians consider in a meaningful way mixed methods approaches at the philosophical, methodological, and methods levels to inform an all-encompassing mixed methods research approach. So let's take these one at a time. First, we'll deal with the philosophical dimension of the mixed methods integration trilogy, as indicated here. The philosophical dimension of the mixed methods integration trilogy is the perspective or worldview orienting the mixed methods researcher's approach to integration of qualitative and quantitative strands of mixed methods research inquiry. Now, there are actually three stances on paradigms, or these are worldviews, and I'm using somewhat interchangeably paradigm and philosophical position, as is what happens in the literature. But basically, the three approaches are an aparadigmatic stance, which is a position that you don't need to use a particular paradigm or a particular philosophy. A single paradigmatic stance is a position that a single paradigm suffices for guiding a mixed method study. Or a multiple paradigmatic stance, which is the position of using more than one paradigm in a single mixed method study. So this is what we saw in Jennifer Green's evaluation study, where she used both post-positivism as well as constructivism. This is a busy table, but let me walk you through it. So these are those three paradigmatic stances, and then the paradigm, and then selected references. And basically what I wanted to do was introduce to you what types of paradigms have been utilized. So for example, with the aparadigmatic stance, A meaning without paradigm, is not applicable because the authors are saying that there isn't necessarily one present. A single paradigm stance can be pragmatism or transformative, critical realism, postmodernism, yin-yang, or falatui. A multiple paradigm stance has also basically been framed as a dialectical pluralism. So this basically is suggesting this is accepting that multiple paradigms can be used together. And an example of that has been the performative paradigm as authored by Judith Schonenboom. So again, not expecting you to remember all of these, but mostly wanting to show you that in an aparadigmatic stance, authors are not using a paradigm. There are single paradigm stances which have been used. These, pragmatism, transformative, critical realism, postmodernism, yin-yang, and falatui. And then there are multiple paradigm stances arguing for use of more than one of these together in a program of research. Given the focus of our conference on education, it's apropos to give you information about an article published by Adam Coates. This was called The Prevalence of Philosophical Assumptions, described in Mixed Methods Research and Education, and published in the journal Mixed Methods Research just in 2021. So Coates examined the philosophical assumption presented in 1,026 mixed methods research articles. 81 of these 1,026, or 7.9%, identified philosophical commitments, and these authors claimed 31 distinct stances. So the number of articles containing philosophical assumptions had climbed from less than 1% in 1999, as shown in this table over here. This was the total number of articles that had mixed method research in 1999. And then the number containing philosophical assumptions, only one. Up through 2017, where there were 855 articles, and 70 of these had contained philosophical assumptions. So you see really a rapid increase both in the number of mixed methods research articles published in education in that 18-year period, as well as also a gradual climb in the total number stating a specific philosophical position. Interestingly, Coates found that the philosophical stance could direct the decision to use mixed methods in the study. That is, individuals took a particular philosophical stance and then followed their mixed methods with that stance, or that the philosophical stance could be the result of the choice to use mixed methods research. In other words, because someone was using mixed methods research, they adopted a philosophical stance consistent with that. So the philosophical dimension is the worldview of the researcher. However, Coates suggests that relatively few educational researchers were actually publishing their mixed method studies explicitly with a worldview identified. There was evidence of use in about 1 in 12, or 7.9%, of the published mixed methods research education studies. And as interesting was the number that used a variety of different stances. Okay, so we talked about the first arm of the integration trilogy, the philosophical dimension. Now we're going to talk about the second leg of that trilogy, called the methodological dimension. As for a definition, integration in the methodological dimension refers to the use of mixed methods designs in a combination with other methodology. And there are two ways of approaching this. Inter-method data collection. So inter means between. Between method data collection describes collecting qualitative and quantitative data using two or more procedures. So, for example, that could mean using both qualitative focus groups and a structured survey with closed-ended questions. That would be an inter-method approach because you've used two methods, inter-method approach, between methods approach. Now, Judith Schoenenbaum has recently described this as a methodology with more than one research strand, each of which is conducted according to a different methodology. So in short, we're talking about using two methodologies together in a mixed methods research study. Let's contrast that with intra-method data collection. Intra means within, a within-method data collection, and this is describing the collection of qualitative and quantitative data using a single data collection procedure. So this commonly occurs with questionnaires that are using both closed-ended and open-ended questions. The closed-ended being the quantitative and the open-ended being the qualitative. And it's a single methodology. It is survey methodology. Another example would be a secondary data set record abstraction, where there would be collection both of quantitative information, that could be test scores, attendance records, grades, as well as qualitative information, which was written using text, pictures, images, etc. So this may be descriptive evaluations that might be in a database. Judith Schoenenbaum in 2018 used the language of merged methodology. So she's talking about a merged methodology as a methodology with only one research strand, which is created by merging elements from two or more existing methodologies. So this is a somewhat busy table, but I wanted to present it to you because it organizes these ideas. So we're talking about methodological mixing, and then we're thinking about the first method, method 1, and the second method, method 2. I'm presenting here three types of methodological mixing: intra-method mixing, inter-method mixing, or mixed methods as a methodology combined with another methodology. So let's talk first about intra-method mixing. We have two examples. In intra-method mixing, we would only be using one method, and it might be mixed quantitative and qualitative data collection through a questionnaire, or using one method, a secondary data set abstraction of quantitative and qualitative data. There is no second methodology being used here. In an inter-method mixing, in a mixed method study, again, we might have two examples where there would be both focus group interviews as the first method and then a second method of survey. Or we might have a second example of structured observations combined with semi-structured interviews. So we're seeing two different methods within a mixed method study. Now we might actually also combine mixed methods with another methodology. So we might use a mixed method study also connected with grounded theory, or mixed methods also connected with case study. So let's talk about an example of a mixed methods case study. This is by authors Timothy Guterman and Nancy Mitchell. It was on the role of leadership and culture in creating a meaningful assessment and entitled A Mixed Methods Case Study, published in 2015 in Innovations in Higher Education. Actually, I'm sorry, that was published in 2016. So in their study, their purpose was to examine how does the institution's organization for assessment affect faculty members and their efforts to assess student learning outcomes. For their procedures, they used a convergent mixed methods research case study design, which was using 3 surveys and a qualitative faculty assessment and comments to understand their faculty assessment processes. For their outcomes, they actually identified the importance of faculty leaders creating an institutional culture of assessment process, expanding views of leadership, making assessment meaningful within the academic culture, and giving other recommendations. So the key point here is the use of convergent mixed methods design with surveys and qualitative faculty assessments. So this was a mixing of mixed methods approach with the case study approach. So there's been a lot of interesting work being done in this methodological dimension recently. And indeed, there was a special issue dedicated in the American Behavioral Scientist to this topic of inter-method mixing. So this was organized by Elizabeth Creamer and Judith Schonenboom, and it was about the methodological mixing. And their special issue featured 6 articles illustrating inter-methods mixing. So this is the mixing of 2 different methods together. So this is a bit small, and I apologize for the size, but I just wanted to sort of go through these with you. This is their table of comments, and in addition to their introduction, they had articles on phenomenography. They had another one on two methodological approaches for integration in case studies. This was with Timothy Guterman and myself. And then mixing with grounded theory and intervention research for a mixed methods approach. Using visual models with mixed methods research. Using arts and mixed methods research. And then using mixed methods in action research. And then finally, the table of comments included an article, which is very interesting, one by Judith Schonenboom on how to merge methodologies. And so she called this a 13-step model. So I'd bring your attention to this special issue if you are interested in learning more about this. Next, I would like to talk about the methods dimension of the mixed methods integration trilogy. So we talked about the philosophical stance, we talked about the methodological dimension, and now we're going to talk about this third arm of this trilogy called the methods dimension. So for our purposes in a mixed methods study, I define the methods dimension as the procedures used to justify, design, implement, and disseminate the research findings. So along with my co-editor, Jose Molina Zorin, we identified multiple dimensions of integration within the design, implementation, and dissemination of mixed methods projects. So this is a table talking about the aspects, which would be the research contributors, the strategic, the implementation, and the communication of findings, as well as those specific dimensions. So we're going to be talking about each one of these dimensions under the research aspect attributed to them. So let's talk about that first column, the research contributors. This is those who are engaged in the actual research process. So it's the researcher, the research team, and the participants. And now, thinking of these individual dimensions, individual researchers coming to mixed methods with their own personal and professional experiences that have motivated them to use and value both qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods approaches for making sense of the world. So this is one dimension in that aspect. There's also integration through the research team. And this is speaking to how individual researchers who are coming to mixed methods research teams have personal and professional experiences that have motivated them to use and value qualitative and quantitative methods. And so each member of the team is also bringing a particular view, and those views need to be integrated together. There's also integration in the participant dimension. And what we're referring to here is studies such as a participatory approach. This could be a transformative mixed method study, a CBPR, community-based participatory research project, or a participant action research project where participants can actually be contributors to the research by representing the face of the community, having local knowledge, designing of questions, assisting with analysis, and providing input on the interpretation and dissemination. So this has really been advanced by Nemoyer et al. In a 2020 article in the journal Mixed Methods Research. So the second aspect that we want to discuss about in the methods is the strategic aspect. This is reflecting the advanced planning and thinking that mixed methods researchers utilize in the mixed methods research process. So this includes the literature review, the ethical or research integrity dimension, the theory, the use of rationale, and then the study purpose, aims, and research questions. Integration and the literature review dimension is when we're planning and disseminating mixed methods study, the rationale we use for collecting both the qualitative and the quantitative data. We should see this explicit rationale in the literature review based on the literature. So for the qualitative research, the literature review should indicate the need for individual perspectives or how or why a phenomenon needs to be understood. For the quantitative data collection, the literature review should support the need for understanding trends in a population, associations, correlations, or causality, again about the phenomena of interest. We also need integration in the ethical or research integrity dimension. So the research integrity dimension applies to the approaches used to ensure that mixed data are collected, analyzed, and interpreted according to rigorous standards. And in addition to ensuring within strand standards, we also need to consider threats to the integrity of the research that are unique to mixed methods research. Now, of course, we need to be attentive to these aspects throughout the entire process, but this is the first time to really think about these strategically in the project. Integration and the theory dimension is also very important. Theories can be of different scope, grand theories, middle range theories, or micro range theories, and these may all have relevance. Theory can be used in design, implementation, and interpretation aspects of a mixed methods line of inquiry. And at the design level, theory may be used to justify the rationale for choosing a mixed methods study. During implementation, theory may also be used to organize the data collection, analysis, and representation. And as we said, theory can be used to assist in interpretation of data. Especially, it can be helpful in resolving discordant qualitative and quantitative findings. This is another important issue that also relates to the literature review. We need integration in our rationale. Mixed methods investigations are complex, and so researchers need to identify a mixed methods rationale for conducting an integrated mixed methods research study. The rationale might be for offsetting strengths and weaknesses of the applications of the methods, or it might be comparing the two types of data. It might be developing an expanded understanding, or it might be promoting social justice. So these are all different kinds of rationales that have been put forward for using a mixed methods study. So an integration in the study purpose, aims, and research questions dimension refers to how researchers conducting mixed methods projects need to articulate their mixed methods research purpose, as well as the qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods aims, or by actually having multiple mixed methods aims. The implementation aspect is the doing of the research, that is, the procedures conducting the actual work of the project. So this includes the design, sampling, data collection, and data analysis. As to integration in the research design dimension, mixed methods methodologists have developed various design typologies the researchers should articulate and utilize in their studies. So these different research designs will facilitate integration through both core designs as well as more complex intersected or scaffolded designs. These are all words used to describe the more advanced or more complicated designs. Integration in the sampling dimension is how mixed methods researchers use sampling strategies for the qualitative and the quantitative data collection. So integration may come through participants from an identical sample. It might be a nested sample. It could be an enlarged sample. It could be a different sample, or it might be multi-level samples. And we also know sampling integration is affected by the timing of data collection, where it can occur at similar or different time points. Integration in the data collection dimension refers to how mixed methods researchers plan for specific data collection intents in their studies. So data collection strategies can include matching about the constructs of the data collection. That is, we collect both qualitative and quantitative information about the same constructs. Expanding data collection by using methods to address different aspects of a study. So the qualitative and the quantitative may address different aspects of a study. Constructing a case using both the qualitative and quantitative methods. Contacting the sample based on specific data characteristics. So in other words, we might have a larger population in a quantitative strand of the study, and we can intentionally sample participants for the qualitative strand. Using a building data collection procedure where findings of one type of strand inform the data collection procedures for the other strand. So for example, creating a qualitative interview guide based on the quantitative findings. Or finally, generating and validating a model, where a model is generated with one type of data, say the qualitative data, and then validated quantitatively, or alternatively generated quantitatively and then validated qualitatively. So as to integration in the data analysis dimension, the analysis may occur through an initial independent interest strand. So within strand analysis, within qualitative strand analysis, within a quantitative strand analysis, and then having a mixed analysis after completing the analysis of the other two types. Alternatively, a mixed data analysis can proceed in a more interactive fashion, with iterative findings from one type of data informing the analysis of the other type of data. As one does an integrated data analysis in a mixed method study, the process may be more inductive by linking emerging qualitative and quantitative findings, or it may be more deductive based on an a priori coding scheme, use of scales, or theory. Specific approaches used in mixed methods studies include joint display analysis, data transformation, and others. Having spoken about three other aspects of the methods, we now want to speak of the communication of findings aspect. So this is the approach taken to express mixed methods findings. This includes how we write our mixed methods studies, what is our written format, and it also includes how we disseminate the information. Integration in the rhetorical dimension includes the creation or adaptation of terminology to reflect the mixed methods study. So we just talked about a number of data collection intents, mixed methods data collection intents. So matching or building or connecting. That's using the language of mixed methods research. Using a writing strategy to compose the prose that we use to reflect our mixed methods studies effectively. And then also illustrating the added value of mixed methods findings through our writing. Integration in the dissemination dimension represents the integrated strategies used to distribute findings from a mixed methods study. There may be multiple mixed methods papers from a single study. So in academics, having multiple papers from a single study is a good thing. And mixed methods projects produce lots and lots of information. So this can be a combination of empirical mixed data papers, empirical qualitative only papers, empirical quantitative only papers, and finally mixed methods methodology papers. So this would be approaches to how to conduct mixed methods studies, not the findings, not the empirical findings, but the process findings. So to further reflect on these three dimensions for applications for interpreting the literature and applying to your own research, I'd like to bring in a mixed methods interventional study, which I like, which was conducted by Ling and Pang. It's currently in the journal Mixed Methods Research, 2021 you can see, and it's a vignette-based transformative multi-phase mixed methods interventional study featuring Venn diagram joint displays. So this was about financial education with Hong Kong early adolescent ethnic minority students. It's a very interesting study conducted in the educational field out of Hong Kong. Using transformative philosophy and vignettes, and very interesting study. So their purpose was to improve the financial literacy of ethnic minority students through financial education as a step toward ending intergenerational poverty. Their procedures were the use of a multi-phase quasi-experimental study using vignette-based mixed methods and phenomenology in an interventional study examining financial education of early adolescent ethnic minority students. What they found through their intervention was that there was better financial planning strategies noted in the intervention group when compared with control group. But they also found somewhat contradictory findings that there was more borrowing in the intervention group and poor saving behavior, which seemed to contradict the findings that they had improved long-term financial planning strategies. So this is an interesting study because of their use of a transformative paradigm, their use of a Venn diagram, joint displays to integrate mixed methods data, and a number of other features which we don't really have time to talk about fully. So what I've done here is to use a similar structuring to present the Ling and Pang study. So first the philosophical dimension, the methodological dimension, and the methods dimension. The same three dimensions that we talked about with the green study, which I introduced earlier. But what you notice is very different is the quantitative here is in red again. The qualitative is in blue, but we also have now the purple, our special color for Saturday. And this is emphasizing the mixed methods aspects of this. And I like this because you mix blue and red and you get purple. But we see in the philosophical dimension the use of a single paradigm. So in contrast to the green study, which used a post-positivistic as well as a constructivist view, there's a single transformative paradigm. We also saw that in the methodological dimension in this study by Ling and Peng, both an intervention and the use of phenomenology in cases, a mixed data survey, which was combining both qualitative and quantitative data collection together. So we see multiple aspects of integration through the methodological dimension. And then in addition to the methods dimension within the quantitative, the methods dimension within the qualitative, we also see some specific mixed methods approaches, including data transformation, as well as the use of Venn diagram for joint display. Here we see that joint display Venn diagram for drawing meta inferences about the students' financial planning strategies and their saving behaviors. I won't go into detail, but we can see that they combined across cultural finance, autonomous finance, and behavioral finance, and then drew their meta inferences from these. So in conclusion, there are many opportunities to integrate through the philosophical, methodological, and methods dimensions. Coates found in the philosophical dimension that many educational researchers are not articulating their worldview and how it influences their research. There's just a rapid explosion in the mixing opportunities through the methodological dimension, as illustrated by the special issue in the American Behavioral Scientist. And then through my own work, found just many developments and examples of growth and the use of integration strategies during the methods. These next several slides include the references that have been used for the study. Second page of references, third page of references, and the fourth page of references. These will all be available in the final paper coming. It's my pleasure to also bring your attention to my own work. Foremost, the Mixed Methods Research Workbook, Activities for Designing, Implementing, and Publishing Projects, which is published by Sage. Much of the content that I reviewed today can be found in much greater detail in the Mixed Methods Research Workbook, which has over 100 activities for working on mixed methods projects. My second book, A Guide to Mixed Methods Research, A Treasure Hunt for Learning Research Design to Writing for Publication, has been published in Japanese with my co-editor, Hisako Kakai. Lastly, I would point to you the paper from this presentation today, the Mixed Methods Integration Trilogy and Education Research, is forthcoming. I would also note there are additional examples and literature and citations in the paper that we did not have time to address today. On a final note, I would like to share with you these words. Kakapun, thank you. I've appreciated the opportunity to share with you today current ideas about integration and mixed methods research. It was absolutely wonderful to be connected with Thailand again. I have great appreciation for Professor Kittituk, who hosted me in 2017. I also want to thank sincerely Professor Miriam Nilipin for the invitation to present to you this keynote presentation, and also express my thanks to the organizing committee for all of their work in putting this together. I do hope that the Integration Trilogy will stimulate your own ideas about how you can advance integration in your own projects, and I look forward to your questions and further correspondence with you. Thank you.